I was really excited for the Z6 III. As the hype built up around the launch, I was kind of thinking, yeah, this is the right time for me. I'm happy to make a jump from the Nikon Z6 and Z6 II to the Z6 II and Z6 III. After all, I have been starting to experience limitations with the Z6 and Z6 II's autofocus, especially with the Z6 to be honest, and it just felt like the right time to upgrade. I was also kind of surprised at how long I'd had the Z6, over 5 years at this point, and that just feels like a sort of natural time where you'd sort of look to upgrade. The Z6 III definitely promised to be the right camera. It had rumoured to have a jump from 4K to 6K video. We were going to see the X-Speed 7 image processor, which allows much better autofocus and tracking. Also gives us features like Nikon RAW video, which is obviously also interesting. And that all sort of happened when the Z6 III launched. There was some things I was wrong about. I genuinely believed that we might see a global shutter on it. We didn't. I also kind of believed that we'd see a jump in megapixels as well, from 24 to say 33. But that equally didn't happen either, which is fine. It was one of my wants, not my things that I was stuck on. But either way, that's by the by. And then the price. I saw the price halfway through the Z6 III launch video that I was watching, and I was kind of surprised. I thought that perhaps the retailer had made a mistake, because £2,700 was £200 more than I kind of thought Nikon would charge. But it turned out that's the price, £2,700 in the UK. And that kind of posed an issue. It was that it was a lot more money for, in my head at least, not that much more camera. Yes, it had been redesigned. Yes, it had the X-Speed 7 sensor. Yes, we had 6K video. There are loads of tweaks. I am not for a second suggesting that the Z6 III is not different enough to the Z6 II, because quite clearly it is. But that price difference posed an issue, because currently with rebates or discounts, the Z8 costs £3,300 in the UK, and suddenly that gap between the Z6 line and the Z8 line wasn't that big. The Z8's a year old now, but it's still a mini Z9, and Nikon have done what they did with the original Z6, which was give it plenty of software updates to give it, you know what, some pretty cool new features along the way, many of which the Z6 III also has. But I think I'd kind of got to that point where, for the money that Nikon wanted for the Z6 III, the Z8 suddenly became a lot more appealing, which is why the eagle-eyed among you will have already noticed I'm holding a Z8 and not a Z6 III. I was lucky enough to be at the Nikon Professional Service UK launch event for the Z8 last year in May, and I was really impressed by the Z8, and I kind of at that point already thought, oh, I should buy one of these. But it was a lot of money, especially without discounts, and I just couldn't justify it. But this year, having seen the Z6 III and my sort of upgrade path, the Z8 kind of won. I'm still surprised that I pulled the trigger on the Z8 quite so quickly. But the Z6 III simply wasn't exciting enough at that point for me personally. I'm still going to be aiming to get my hands on the Z6 III, hopefully in the not too distant future, and spend some time with it. Hopefully I won't regret my Z8 decision. But that means you can expect some content on the Z8. Let's do a bit of a deep dive on some of the features. I'm really curious to see how this camera has developed since I last spent some decent amount of time with it, which was last year. Also, let's just have a think about that upgrade path that a lot of people are going to be doing. I do think that for a lot of people that shoot video, purely video, the Z6 III is probably still a really great choice. For me personally though, I really like the idea of having 8K over 6K. I'm not going to be publishing content in 8K, I think that's insane at this point. However, I do think that there's even more creative freedom with 8K over 6K. And at this point, for what is a relatively small jump in price, why not have the full capabilities? There are obviously some downsides. This is a significantly heavier body than the Z6 line and the Z6 III. It, however, does feel really good in the hand, and I'd kind of forgotten how good this camera feels and immediately appreciated the longer grip on it. And the thing I noticed that it reminds me of is actually the D300. Yeah, the grip on the Z8 and the D300, I've never really compared them. Surprisingly similar, and I absolutely adored my D300. I used it for years, and it's kind of fun to be back into that sort of same size body, because I never really did the D800 lineup, so that was kind of interesting too. And I kind of wonder as well whether I've wanted to outgrow the 24 megapixel sensor for a bit. I've been on that train since the D600. Nothing wrong with it. 24 megapixels is, for all intents and purposes for the photography I do, more than ample. But it's always interesting to experiment with something a little bit different. And that's where the 45 megapixels that the Z8 have certainly also enticed me. So yeah, the Z6 III was all set to happen until it didn't, which was pretty much within 15 minutes of watching that launch video. So hopefully we can still do some Z6 III content. I really do want to, and I think it'll be interesting and exciting to look at, especially now I have the Z8 to compare it to. But we are going to be on the Z8 train from now on. And just thought it'd be interesting to talk through at least part of my logic for making that choice. Obviously it's a year old, so it's a bit less exciting from a reviews perspective, but equally I think the camera's changed a lot. I've already shot a couple of thousand frames on this over the past week, especially attending the Goodwood Festival of Speed this weekend, which was very fun, and I very quickly learnt that this certainly eats through batteries a little bit faster than the Z6 II does, so that was a good lesson to learn. Thankfully I had a couple of spares with me. But yeah, so let's have some Z8 content in the near future. I'd love to know if any of you have some interesting topics you'd want to deep dive into on the Z8 or indeed the Z6 III. I know there's been loads of videos, very impressed actually, more videos than I expected on Z6 III from other creators, so I'm going to have to try and do something a little bit different, but we'll definitely do the usual review as well. And yeah, so there you have it. The swap to Z6 III never happened, and the Z8 is now in the studio. Which hopefully I'll be using to video the next couple of videos on the channel. So expect more photography content. I know I keep on saying it. This is kind of what I was alluding to as the start of that. Equally, we've got some really cool other reviews coming up, including small battery power banks, which some people like, some people don't like, but I do think are useful because not that many people do them, so hopefully like that too. And also have some photo accessories coming up as well, so make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Equally, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Any questions about Z8 or videos you want to see around the Z8, I'd love to see that. And equally, maybe I can do a bit of a post-mortem on the Z6 and Z6 II as well, discussing, yeah, where that might have gone slightly wrong for me personally. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.